Hello everyone, this is Victor from the Modern Gaffa, and today I have some manga to talk about, or manga. Manga. Vote in the comments how I should pronounce it. The first one I want to talk about is called Astra, Lost in Space. I describe this as Digimon with teenagers in space, minus actual Digimon. It's about Digimon in the sense that there are a bunch of kids who are like mostly strangers, and they are kind of gathered together to go to camp. And when they get to camp, they get sucked through a portal, and they end up in an unfamiliar place. And they have to try to find a way home, and there's all this talk about survival and rationing food and finding food and foraging and stuff. And each of the characters, there's 9 of them, 8 teenagers and like 1 little kid. They all have intricate backstories and different personalities, and you only learn about a handful of them right away in the first book. It's really good. I love it. It might be my favorite comic that I've read all year. If you want to know more, you can read my full review of it, which there's a link to that in the thing below. That's on the website. Check it out. Astra, Lost in Space, really good. So the next one is called The Promised Neverland. This is kind of similar to the last one, where it's like, feels like kind of something. This one I kind of think is kind of like Death Note minus Death Notes with kids. Yeah. It's about an orphanage where all these kids are brought in there when they're like 1 year old. None of them remember where they came from. They all assume they're orphans, orphanage. And they all love their caretaker, who they just call Mom. And the 3 oldest kids are also like super geniuses, and they discover like a sort of dark, seedy, mysterious mystery going on as to where they came from and what's outside of the wall that surrounds their orphanage. And once they find out, they decide it's time to escape, and they're basically plotting to escape while also using like deductive reasoning and analysis, like Light and L, to get out. What's different, and I kind of like this about Death Note, because Death Note is a lot of L does something, he thinks Light's gonna do it, then Light does something and he knows L's gonna do it, and they just keep going back and forth, saying, oh, I'm gonna do this, and L knows I'm gonna do it, and then I'm gonna do it, and he knows, and it's this whole thing. We don't see a lot of the other side of things, at least not at first. At the end, it seems like the villains, I guess we should call them, are going to have more attention. But basically, imagine Death Note without the scenes featuring L, just kind of Light thinking about what L's going to do, and, finding the FBI agents and all that kind of stuff, without cutting back to L, who basically reaffirms everything and speculates things that eventually happen right away. It's very cute, but also that's kind of a red herring, because eventually horrible things happen to these kids right away. It's really good. Highly recommend it. Go check it out. This next one is called Children of the Whales. One thing I noticed right away is you look at these two, and they're the same standard size that manga has been in at least America since like forever, like when Tokyo Pop and Shonen Jump first became a thing. But you line it up with this, and Children of the Whales is like a little bigger. And I was like, what the hell? And turns out this is an imprint of, on the side the logo is just SIG, and on the back it's called Viz Signature. I've never heard of these, and I don't know any other Viz Signatures out there, so I guess it's just higher quality stuff. I mean, it's more expensive. But, I don't know. It didn't feel Criterion Collection level anime to me, so I don't really know what Viz Signature is supposed to be. Anyway, Children of the Whale is kind of like Gargantia, but without giant robots and sand instead of water. I gotta stop doing that comparison. It follows a kind of post-apocalyptic story about this community of about 500 people who live on a floating island in a sea of sand, and the sand is so, I guess, dense that if you fall into it, it's like water, where you'll just sink to the bottom. And they just kind of go, I guess, with the wind? I don't know how they float on sand. Even the characters themselves don't know if the boat they're on, which they call the mud whale, how does it work? Is it a living creature? Maybe? Anyway, they find a girl who is the first human from outside of the mud whale that they've ever seen, and she kind of thrusts them into this whole nonsense that they've never experienced. Towards the end, like, half the main characters die, and like a Naruto-looking war kind of starts. So that's cool. I feel like Volume 2 is where it gets really going. What's really neat about this is like the magic system. 90% of the people living on the Mud Whale are what are known as marked, which means they have the ability to kind of summon this magic aura power that has a name that I kind of forget and don't remember how to pronounce anyway. Aura appears as like weird magic symbols on your skin, and one floating above your head, and the larger that they cover, or the larger the one above your head, means you have stronger power. It's mostly used for things like farming and work around the facility, the island, and fighting with it is forbidden, but of course, at the end, they made people who use the power for, evil and killing and stuff. It's very interesting. It's told in this weird diary style. The author claims that they found a journal in a diary store somewhere, and it was written in, like, a way that was, like, devoid of emotion, and then all of a sudden the tone shifted to be very full of emotion. So the main character in here, Chakuro, he is like the scribe who writes the history of the Mud Whale. He gets yelled at by the elders because he puts too much emotion in the reports, and there's like a shift in that where he kind of becomes less emotional and stuff like that. And meanwhile, the girl they discover, she has actually been putting her emotions into a magical thingy. Spoilers, it's complicated. And since they've taken her away from that, she's actually become more emotional. It's really good. Children of the Whale. I strongly recommend it. Check it out. This wasn't like a sponsored review or anything, but I finished Death Note last month. I picked it up at a flea market in September, and I've been reading it off and on. I got the whole series for $8. It's really good. Death Note, you know it, you've seen it, everyone has heard of it. Compared to the anime, there's a lot of things that are explained a little better in the manga. I feel like they were kind of rushed for time and pacing, and they didn't want to have too much just talking heads back and forth in the anime. But there are other things that I feel like the anime got a bit more cinematic here and there. But regardless, it's really good. If you have never ever read Death Note, check it out. I mean, it's available anywhere in a million different kinds of collections. I've only ever seen it in like anime conventions in box sets that are like $100. So finding it at a flea market was awesome. And the last thing I have to review is my first ever adult coloring book. It's called Hello Kitty and Friends, the coloring book. And I've been putting off doing a review of this because I wanted to buy colored pencils, but I kept forgetting. And then my wife was like, oh, I have colored pencils. And I'm like, great. And now I don't know where they are. But anyway, it's a Hello Kitty coloring book. What can I say? It's just full of a bunch of cute little images. There's like a wintry one. There's some flowers. This one's sweets. They're on like cake and stuff. What's really cool is every other page is blank with just this little tiny illustration in the corner. And that's kind of a preview for what goes on over here. So in addition to a coloring book, there's kind of like this blank canvas aspect where you can like draw your own images on one side and color the other. Yeah, I didn't think I'd have that much to say about an adult coloring book, let alone a Hello Kitty one. But there's some weird stuff in here, But I think it's cool. Here's like a little Red Riding Hood page. Here's one where it's either two Hello Kitties or Kitty and her sister. It's hard to tell because it's black and white. But they're surrounded by giant houses, and it's like, okay, are they stuck in like a dollhouse store, or are they just giant, or did they shrink? I guess if they shrunk, they wouldn't be surrounded by houses. I don't know. There's a lot of imagination to be had in this. So if you're interested in Hello Kitty and adult coloring books, this is not a bad adult coloring book featuring Hello Kitty. So that's it. Towards the end of this month, I just got a bunch of manga to review, and it was just too much to do a post for every single one, so I thought I'd clump them all together. So thank you to Viz Media for sending me everything except the Death Note was sent to me to review. Like I said, Astra Lost in Space, there's a full review of that on my website, moderngaffa.com. And I believe, like, the whole thing is digital first, and you can read it for free on their website, so I might do that. I mentioned this in the review that ever since high school, the only manga I've ever, like, bought, like, every issue or every volume whenever they come out is Hunter x Hunter. But honestly, Astra, I kind of want to own the whole thing. Alright, let me know in the comments what manga you've been reading recently. Let me know if I should pronounce it manga or manga, and have a good day. Go read some manga, and I love you. Bye.